By 1916, the First World War had spread far beyond the trenches of Europe. Across the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire controlled vast territories stretching from Anatolia to the Arabian Peninsula. For centuries, the empire had governed diverse peoples, cultures, and religions. But as the war intensified, new opportunities emerged for those seeking greater autonomy or independence. At the same time, Britain was searching for ways to weaken the Ottoman war effort. The result would be a conflict unlike any other in the First World War. A campaign fought across deserts, mountains, railways, and remote outposts. A war that would help reshape the future of the Middle East. At the center of the revolt stood Hussein bin Ali, the Sharif of Mecca. As the guardian of Islam's holiest city, Hussein possessed significant influence throughout the region. He had grown increasingly concerned about Ottoman centralization policies and the future of Arab self-government. Meanwhile, British officials sought local allies against the Ottoman Empire. A series of communications between Hussein and British representatives laid the foundation for cooperation. Both sides hoped to achieve their objectives through partnership. Yet the promises, expectations, and interpretations involved would later become the source of lasting controversy. For the moment, however, both sides shared a common enemy. The revolt officially began in June 1916. Arab forces launched attacks against Ottoman positions in the Hejaz region. Several coastal cities became early objectives. The initial stages achieved mixed results. The Ottoman Empire still possessed experienced troops, fortified positions, and important transportation networks. Arab leaders quickly recognized that defeating the Ottomans through conventional warfare would be extremely difficult. The empire's military resources remained considerable. To succeed, the revolt would need to exploit mobility, local knowledge, and the vast geography of the Arabian Desert. The campaign soon evolved into something far more unconventional. One of the most important figures to emerge during the revolt was T.E. Lawrence. A British intelligence officer with knowledge of the region, Lawrence became a liaison between British authorities and Arab leaders. Over time, he developed close working relationships with several commanders of the revolt. Popular culture would later transform him into a legendary figure. However, the Arab Revolt involved thousands of participants and numerous leaders. Lawrence played an important role, but he was only one part of a much larger movement. Even so, his experiences would later become among the most famous stories of the First World War. Rather than confronting Ottoman armies directly, Arab forces increasingly targeted infrastructure. Their most famous objective became the Hejaz Railway. This railway connected key Ottoman positions across vast distances and served as a vital supply route. Arab fighters launched repeated raids against tracks, bridges, stations, and trains. Small groups could inflict significant damage before disappearing into the desert. The attacks forced Ottoman commanders to divert troops toward guarding the railway. What appeared to be minor acts of sabotage gradually created major strategic problems. The desert itself became a powerful ally of the revolt. The campaign demonstrated the effectiveness of guerrilla warfare against a larger conventional force. Arab fighters possessed mobility that Ottoman troops often struggled to match. Camels and horses allowed rapid movement across terrain unfamiliar to many enemy units. The vast desert provided concealment, flexibility, and freedom of maneuver. Instead of seeking decisive battles, the revolt focused on exhausting and disrupting Ottoman control. Military resources had to be spread across enormous areas. Every railway station, bridge, and supply depot became a potential target. Over time, maintaining control grew increasingly difficult. The strategy was achieving exactly what its planners intended. One of the most famous operations of the revolt involved the capture of the port city of Aqaba in 1917. Many believed the city was well protected from attack. Its coastal defenses faced the sea, where a traditional assault might be expected. Instead, Arab forces approached through the desert. The route was difficult, dangerous, and largely unexpected. After a challenging campaign, Aqaba fell to the revolt. The victory transformed the strategic situation. The port provided access to supplies, communications, and closer cooperation with British forces. It also became one of the defining moments in the legend of the Arab Revolt. As the revolt expanded, cooperation between Arab and British forces increased. British support included weapons, funding, advisors, intelligence, and naval assistance. Together, these resources strengthened operations across the region. At the same time, broader Allied offensives were placing growing pressure on Ottoman forces elsewhere. The empire faced challenges on multiple fronts. The Arab Revolt alone did not defeat the Ottoman Empire, but it contributed significantly to weakening Ottoman control over the Arabian Peninsula and surrounding territories. Its influence was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. By 1917 and 1918, the balance of power in the Middle East was beginning to shift. Ottoman forces were increasingly stretched across multiple fronts. Resources became harder to replace. Transportation networks faced constant disruption. Meanwhile, Allied offensives advanced from Egypt into Palestine and beyond. The Arab Revolt complemented these operations by tying down Ottoman troops and damaging critical infrastructure. Together, these campaigns created mounting pressure on the empire. Military leaders in Constantinople faced increasingly difficult decisions. Every reinforcement sent to one front weakened another. The strategic situation was deteriorating. In September 1918, Allied forces launched the Battle of Megiddo. The offensive achieved a major breakthrough against Ottoman positions. Arab forces participated in operations designed to disrupt retreating enemy units and sever communications. The campaign accelerated the collapse of Ottoman resistance in the region. Entire formations found themselves isolated. Supply routes disappeared. Command structures began breaking down. The momentum that had been building for years now became overwhelming. The Ottoman Empire's position in the Middle East was rapidly unraveling. One of the most symbolic moments of the campaign came with the entry of Arab and Allied forces into Damascus. The city held immense historical, cultural, and strategic significance. For many participants in the revolt, its capture represented the realization of long-held aspirations. Crowds gathered as the Ottoman era in the city came to an end. Yet even amid celebration, questions remained unanswered. What would happen after the war? How would the region be governed? Would the promises made during the conflict be fulfilled? These questions would soon become central to the future of the Middle East. The end of the war brought victory but also disappointment. During the conflict, various agreements and promises had been made by different governments. Not all of them were compatible with one another. As peace negotiations unfolded, many Arab leaders discovered that the future envisioned during the revolt would not fully materialize. European powers retained significant influence over the region. New borders were drawn. New political arrangements emerged. The legacy of these decisions would shape international relations in the Middle East for generations. Some of the debates that began after the Arab Revolt continue even today. The legacy of the Arab Revolt extends far beyond the military events of World War I. The conflict helped accelerate the collapse of Ottoman authority across much of the Arab world. It influenced the emergence of new political movements, new governments, and new national identities. For some, the revolt became a symbol of self-determination and resistance. For others, it became associated with promises that were never fully realized. Different nations would later interpret its meaning in different ways. Yet few historians dispute its importance. The Arab Revolt was one of the key events that shaped the modern Middle East. The story of T.E. Lawrence remains one of the most famous aspects of the campaign. Books, films, documentaries, and historical studies have explored his role for more than a century. Some portray him as a heroic adventurer. Others emphasize the contributions of the Arab leaders and fighters who carried the revolt forward. Modern historians generally view the campaign as a collective effort involving many individuals and communities. Lawrence was undoubtedly influential, but the revolt's success depended on thousands of participants whose names are less widely known. Together, they helped alter the course of history. Today, the Arab Revolt remains a subject of historical interest, political discussion, and cultural memory. Its battles demonstrated the effectiveness of mobility, sabotage, and guerrilla warfare. Its political consequences transformed the map of the Middle East. Its leaders became symbols whose influence extended far beyond their own era. And its unresolved questions continue to shape discussions about identity, sovereignty, and international relations. More than a century later, the Desert Campaign of 1916 still echoes across the region it helped transform. The Arab Revolt was more than a military campaign. It was a struggle shaped by competing ambitions, wartime alliances, and visions for the future of an entire region. Its fighters challenged one of the world's oldest empires using mobility, local knowledge, and unconventional tactics. Their actions contributed to the defeat of the Ottoman Empire and helped redefine the political landscape of the Middle East. Yet the questions raised during the revolt did not end with the war. Instead, they became part of a larger story that continues to influence world events today.